Always consult with your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from participation in this program. And now I leave you with Keith Beasley.
Hi, good morning. Let's sit up nice and tall and just move from side to side a little bit. And sometimes this helps to get us centered so that we can begin to feel what it's like to be a little bit to one side and then a little bit to the other. And then we're going to slowly, you could even put your hands out like this, or rest your hands on your legs like this, so that you can sort of feel the balance moving a little from side to side. And then you're going to slowly make it smaller and smaller, the side to side, until finally you come to stop right in the middle. So the left and right sides feel even. So left and right feet feel even. The left and right buttocks feel even. Even the left and right shoulders are hanging down evenly away from the ears. And the center of the body where we have the perineum at the bottom and the spine rising up, it feels like it's balanced perfectly right in the middle of where we're sitting. You could practice this standing too if you wanted, if you prefer to be standing. Just be careful of your balance. The nice thing about sitting is it's easy to close the eyes and not have to worry about balance. And if you do feel like your balance needs a little more, you need more stability, try moving your feet slightly wider apart. So normally the wider we move the feet, the broader the base of this triangular shape that we make. And of course, a wide base triangle is very stable. Now let's take a few breaths here. Now let's rest our palms, one palm on the belly button, on the navel, and the other palm, put it on the very top of the chest so that the fingers, the thumb and the index finger, are up near the collarbones. So my collarbones are right here, and I'm just going to rest my palm. So the palm is really up at the top of the sternum, and my other palm is on my belly. This provides an opportunity to really feel the body moving with the breath. So as I inhale, I feel the belly filling first, and then the ribs, and then there's a little bit of a lift, a little slight lift up here, but it's a small lift compared to down here. So the upper part doesn't move nearly as much. Even you can imagine it moves the most, and then it's a little less movement here in the ribs, a little less movement in the middle of the chest, and the least movement up around the collarbones. And then as we exhale, it's the opposite. This softening in the collarbones, just a little movement, softening in the heart, and finally relaxing the belly. Perhaps think about a slight movement, feeling the movement of the navel back towards the spine, so the navel gets closer to the spine. And then I begin again. I'm going to go back and forth like that. And if I watch the breath carefully, my attention begins to be drawn inwards, so that everything around me, it's still there, but I don't pay any attention to it. And I begin to really pay attention to feeling the breath and feeling the body, the movements of the body, the posture of the body. And that's what the Hatha Yoga, which is what we're practicing today, really is about. By definition, it's the physical, it's a connection to the physical body using the breath. Connecting the mind to the physical body using the breath. You can bring your hands down if you want, whenever you're ready. So always remember, this is your practice, and we'll be doing various movements and postures, and you'll ultimately decide for yourself what works for you. And sometimes it takes a little bit of, it helps to have some experience helps. And then remembering what worked for you the last time. It may not work for you this time, but oftentimes it does. So there's a rhythm that we can find when we really tune in to what works for us. Now let's begin with a sound. So just listening for a moment, sitting up tall and breathing, just like we were doing before. Welcome to our chair yoga class, our gentle chair yoga class. And let's begin with some movement. So we almost always begin this way, I think, but let's bring our hands together. We'll inhale and let the arms circle around. And as you inhale, think about lifting the chest up so that the shoulders kind of roll back. Let's try this actually. Just bring your arms down for a minute and roll the shoulders up and back a few times. So I'm not lifting my shoulders up too high. I don't want to bunch the shoulders up. I want the shoulders to feel like they're moving freely. Kind of like I'm moving my elbow. Like if I ways just like this. I'm like rowing, even like rowing almost. A very small row though. The circles with my row are very small. So the movements on the shoulders are circular or relatively close to circular. And now let's try that again with the bringing the palms together and then inhale up and circle around. So see if you can feel that same circling that we had before. The circling of the shoulders around. And you have some choices here as to how big the circles are, even how wide you bring the arms out. So we want this to feel, we want it to feel nice. We want it to feel good, not straining, but a little bit of effort. So we're balancing that ease and effort. But the most important thing is we're inhaling and there's this nice opening. And then as we exhale, the palms come down and around. You can also vary the speed a little bit of your breathing. So if you breathe a little faster, the arms are going to go a little faster. And if you want to calm down a little more, try breathing more slowly. And that way the arms will move more slowly. And we're going to come back to the middle, bring the palms together, and very gently press the palms. Make sure all the fingers line up here. So try to make each one of the fingertips line up, and also think about spreading the fingers apart, not with stress, but with just a gentle spreading apart. And if one's a little closer to the other and one's a little further apart, it doesn't matter. Find what works for you. You also may notice that the shape on the hands when you spread the fingers is probably not the same from the left and the right. And we always have some asymmetries. Actually, it's normal to have asymmetries in the body. If we were totally symmetrical, that would be weird. And then we're going to go the other way. We'll bring the palms together and then drop the hands. And then inhale, turn the palms up and come up. And actually bring the hands back. Before we do that, let's swim like this. So remember, so before we did the arms like this, now we're going to do the arms like this, but add a little bit more of the turning movement here. Turning. So as I reach out, if I was doing the crawl stroke in the pool, I would reach out, hand would come across and down the other side towards my opposite hip. And now let's come back and let's come up as we inhale and then down as we exhale. So up as we inhale, down as we exhale. Oh, feel free to add a sigh. Still feel balanced in the chair too. So balanced on the feet, balanced on the buttocks, and a nice posture, which means those three curves in the spine, the lumbar spine's going in slightly, the thoracic spine between the shoulder blades goes out towards the back of the room, and the cervical spine where the neck is going forward. And then we'll bring the hands together. And let's do a few cactus breaths here. Let's warm the hands up. Gently rubbing the hands together. And then rub the back of one hand. And then the back of the other hand. And let's give them a little massage too. We haven't done this in a while. So we take the fleshy part of the, I'll walk up a little closer so you can hopefully see better. Take the fleshy part of the thumb and put it right in the middle of the palm and open the palm. So my hand is relaxed and it's almost like I'm kneading dough. I'm opening the palm and I'm going to do it in 3 spots. I'm going to do the base where the pinky is. I'm going to do between the thumb. And it's the same thing here. It's a little harder to see. I'm still using the fleshy part of the base of the thumb. And then also at the base of the opposite thumb to open the palm. Let's do the other side. And it doesn't matter which order you do them in, but do each spot individually. So this is a nice practice. If you can remember to do this every day or every couple of days, you know, our hands, especially in the winter, there's a tendency for the body to kind of shrink and get smaller to conserve heat. And it's nice to be able to, and I don't know if you can see, but my hands, they're a little pinker from doing that, which is good, which is what we want. We'd like a little better blood flow, especially when it's cold. And you'll notice that it's cold enough. And I have a hood on my sweatshirt. And this is a fairly heavy sweatshirt. So it's good to be warm when we practice so that it lessens the risk of any sort of pulling something or injuring ourselves if our muscles and our joints are warm during our practice. That's an important part. And that goes for any exercise that we do. It's always important to have a warm up so that the body's systems are ready to do what we're asking them to do. If you have when your muscles are really cold and you ask them to do work, they're they might not respond well. They tend to be stiff. And let's bring the hands together and take a few breaths. Inhale and exhale. And let the arms wave a little bit. So a little more, let's think about some fluidity. So we usually do cactus breath like this, a little more rigid. So perhaps add some fluidity to it. You could let the wrists bend as they come out, and then they bend back the other way as you come back. You could still lift the elbows a little bit if you wanted. Just try to have a little fun with the movement. You could even bring the movement down. So now it's down here, and then we're going to slowly, like we're flapping our wings. We're going to slowly raise the arms up. Elbows no higher than the shoulders, though. When you get to the shoulders, go ahead and stop, and then you can go back down if you want. And then one more time. And then bringing the hands and resting them on the legs. So let's get a little more movement with the core, around the core of the body, so we can start to warm up the belly. So we just did the shoulders, and that also helps with the neck. So we'll actually, you know what? Let's do the neck before we go down. Let's move the neck, the chin up and down a few times. And then go ahead and tip the head from side to side. And then turning the head side to side. Remember, on all these warm-up exercises, it's not about we're not looking for big range of motion. We're looking for ease of motion. Ease of motion is more important. So really balancing ease and effort here. So there's some effort, but we want to keep some ease at the same time. And let's go back the other way. And now let's go back down to the core, and we're going to go from side to side. So we started with this with a smaller movement. We're going to have a little bigger movement here. And we're going to allow the knee to come up a little higher, if that's okay for you. And as the knee comes up, we begin to feel the work going on in the belly here. So we want to keep the belly firm. If I'm not sitting against the back of the chair right now, but if you're not sitting against the back of the chair and you find that you're starting to sag like this, then please use the back of the chair and going back and forth. But if you want more of a challenge and you can keep the spine lifted, keep the heart lifted, then slide forward in the chair. Don't use the back of the chair. You could also, if you wanted to give a little help, you could also have the hands on the sides of the seat of the chair and lift and press down to help lift the leg up. So this is going to help to lift the shoulder in one direction or the other. And then we'll come back down. And we'll pause there and begin to rock the feet. So when we rock our feet, please make sure they're pointed straight ahead. They're pointing straight ahead, and the knees are in line with the toes. So the hips, the knees, and the toes are in one line. If you have trouble with stability here, you could move the feet a little further apart, but if they get out too far, it changes the exercise. And we're trying to maintain this nice alignment, especially for the ankles and the feet. So I'm lifting up the toes and lifting up the heels. And let's add the hands to it. Adding the hands back and forth. You can even add a little bit more of the arms if you want. So we've got the fingers, the wrists, and you could add the arms to the rocking. So notice that my arms are going forward a little bit more and coming back to the shoulders. So they go out and they go back, and out and back, and out and back, and out and back. And you could be anywhere in between there too. So you might not want to go out so far. It might feel better to work a little closer. That's okay. And let's add a couple of circles to it like this. So I'm still following the rhythm of the feet, but the movement of the arms is timed with the rhythm of the feet. Or the circles are timed with the rhythm of the feet. Even think about closing the eyes here when you do it. So you're not really watching so much. See if you can feel the movement. Feel the movement. And that starts to use a different part of our brain. Oh, go the other way too. Sorry, I forgot to go the other way. And if you're tired of going, if we're doing something and you're tired of doing it in one direction, because maybe I've forgotten to change, you can change it yourself. Feel free. And then go ahead and bring the arms down. Let's roll the shoulders up and back. Let's do one shoulder and then the other. One shoulder and then the other. When the shoulder rolls back, think about a feeling of lengthening from the collarbone out to the front of the shoulder. From the collarbone. It's a little bit like when we do cactus breaths and we bring the shoulder blades together. So as I lengthen and move my shoulder back, my shoulder blade's going to actually be moving back towards the middle of the spine or towards the spine behind me, but just on one side. And let's come back to two, and then try two of them. And so as you lengthen from the collarbones out to the front of the shoulders, see if you can feel the shoulder blades coming together behind you. So you may need to slow the movement down a little bit to give yourself time to actually feel what's happening. And that goes for a lot of the movements that we do. If we're feeling things, sometimes it takes a little bit more time to feel them. So you may need to slow things down a little bit. And sitting up nice and tall. Let's do the ankles next. So for this one, we will slide back in the chair and go ahead and lift the feet and then circle back the other way. So we're going to go back and forth a few times one direction and a few times in the other. Let's add the hands too. So circling in one direction and then the other. And one more time the other way. And I'm always amazed, one foot is easier than the other. This one over here seems to be kind of sluggish. So I try to get them to work together. And then one more time the other direction. Really thinking about getting them to work together. And then resting. And then lifting up. And let's point and flex a few times. And then the other side. And now we're going to do some leg lifting the leg up. If you have your hand on the thigh, you'll feel the quadricep firm up and tighten, and then flex the foot back so you can feel the toes coming back towards you and the heel moving away from you, and then come back down, and then try the other side. And we're going to go back and forth like that. This is going to start to wake up the quadriceps and also stretch the backs of the legs. And if you want, you could add the arm to it. You could work with the opposite arm, or you can work with the same arm. Lifting the arm up like a dancer. So I'm finding some ease here, some gracefulness with the arm. Perhaps making a connection between the toes and the fingers so that I can feel my toes and fingers like there's a string connection or some sort of connection between. And when my hand lifts up, my leg lifts up. Like they're working together, they're helping each other. And see if you can let go of some of the effort here. And imagine you could do this for 5 or 10 minutes. See if you can find a place where it's the ease and effort are so balanced. And you could do this for a while. We'll do it for a few more times. The other option is, if you feel like you've had enough, rest. So it's really about tuning in with what's happening, either tuning in and finding that balance where you could go for a really long time, or tuning in and saying, maybe that's it's good enough, and I'm going to rest. And I just and breathe. Now let's all bring our arms and legs down and take a few breaths. So we're going to bend the spine in 6 ways. And for that, I find it works best if I slide forward in the chair at least a little bit. Sometimes sitting near the edge of the chair, I find it's easier to rock the pelvis. So my pelvis is right here, and when I bend the spine in 6 ways, I'm going to rock my pelvis forward as my heart lifts forward, and then it rocks back slightly as my heart moves. There's a movement back, or a movement of the thoracic spine, and that into our spine, and also the cervical spine up here. And notice how the arms stay straight or relatively straight. You don't need to hold them so that they're stiff, but they're really just it's almost like your arms are a strut, and the distance and the position of the shoulder relative to the knee. So notice my shoulder isn't really moving. My chest is moving back and forth, and my shoulder blades are moving back and forth behind me. But my shoulder stays in about the same spot because my arm is staying straight. But my arm isn't, it's still relaxed. It's just straight. So see if you can keep it relaxed and straight at the same time as you lift the heart and then move the heart back. So we're inhaling when we lift, exhaling when the heart moves back. And you'll feel a rounding of the shoulder blades as you exhale. So the shoulder blades come forward slightly and round forward. And now let's sit up nice and tall. I'm going to bring the hands up like this. So that was bending the spine, flexion and extension, forward and back. And now we're going to do a little lateral extension. So reaching up first, and we get a nice lateral extension just when we reach up. If this bothers your shoulder, try just the elbows like this. And you can experiment here a little bit with the weight in the buttocks and the feet. So you could try, as you reach up, you could try keeping the weight even on the same side, leg and foot, so that there's more evenness in the pelvis here when I reach up, because there's a tendency when we reach up to lean over and the weight begins to lift off of this foot. So we keep the weight evenly in the legs and the buttocks as we lift up. So there's not so much movement down in the pelvis. The movement kind of starts up at the top of the hip and then goes up the side of the body. The other choice is you could keep the foot down and press the foot down, but add a little bit more lifting and extension out of the pelvis so that this one is lighter. So you could try them both and then see which one you like. This one seems to me to feel a little freer. There's a little more gracefulness of movement, but I find the other one seems to be I feel more grounded because both my feet and my feet and buttocks are staying firmly grounded as I move. So perhaps today you'd like a little more groundedness, or perhaps you'd like to have a little more sort of freedom, like feeling like the body is moving with some ease. So they're both okay. They're both good. You could even go back and forth if you can't make up your mind. Try them both. The nice thing about doing that is it requires us to change our focus a little bit and then refocus for several seconds or 30 seconds, however long we do the particular approach. And it means we have to switch, we have to turn something on and then turn it off. Then bring your hands down. And let's rock from side to side again. Just a little to keep us warm. Rocking from side to side. And this time, remember, you can bring your foot up, bring your knee up, get a little more work going in the belly. It helps to warm us up a little bit. But changing your focus, so we're switching when we were doing this, if you want to go back and forth, it means you have to switch your focus and then refocus. And then you have to switch your focus and then refocus. And that's it's good practice for our minds to be able to quickly refocus into something that's a little different. So sitting up nice and tall. And, that's really the essence. Yoga is this idea of focusing the mind, getting everything to work together. The mind, the body, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, a wholeness. And that wholeness requires real concentration. And these exercises are designed, or I don't know if people thought about how to do it, but they make us be focused and concentrated. They make us pay attention. And this can translate into the rest of our life, the idea of paying attention. Because sometimes we get distracted a lot. There's so many things that distract us. So that was 3 and 4 was this lateral extension. So we bent the spine forward and back like this, we move side to side, and now we're going to do a little turning. Let's start with the hands up like this, moving the elbows back. You could also rest the fingers on the shoulders if you prefer. And we're going to tune in to the feeling in the belly. So we were feeling the belly before, we were feeling the sides. Now feel the belly as we move the elbow back on one side, it comes forward on the other. Feel how the belly kind of turns or twists. from the hip up to the ribs on the opposite side. So we want to feel this nice turning. We feel it turning back and forth. And if you can, try closing the eyes here and really focusing in on the feeling in the belly. Not so much moving the elbows back. I mean, we're moving them back as a means to turn the belly. So think about the belly moving first rather than the elbows moving back. And this is very good for elimination and digestion, this massaging of the belly. Now let's come back and we'll bring the palms together and inhale up, circling a few times. And now let's stand up, or well, you can stay seated. So you have a choice here. We can stand up and do mountain pose, or you can continue with seated mountain pose. So remember, if you're doing it seated, we want a nice 90-degree angle here, and we want the thighs parallel to the floor. And that's going to make it a little easier to sit up. And if you're standing, perhaps you want the feet fairly close together, but I find them a little bit separated. It's more comfortable for me. So it's a matter of finding where do I like my feet, a little wider or a little closer. Some people even have the feet touching. If you do have the feet touching, think about the outside edges parallel, so that if my feet are touching, my big toes are touching, and there's actually a space between the heels on the inside and the outsides are parallel like this. It's certainly better for balance to be even, with some space between the feet, and standing up nice and tall, and then soften the knees and then straighten. I'm going to soften just a little bit and straighten. It's very important when we bend the knees to make sure that they're going straight ahead. So if you have something to put between the legs, it can often be a good thing to, if you gently squeeze whatever you have, a rolled up towel or a block, it's a way to engage the inner thighs. And also it helps to keep the knees going straight ahead like this. Because if my knees start to go out, the block starts to fall. So we can use something like this, or even a cushion. You could take a cushion and put it between the thighs. Or you could watch carefully. You can watch carefully. You can even put your hands down like this so that everything is in a line. My fingers are pointing down towards the toes. My knees are going the same direction as my arms like this. Now let's come back up, stand up nice and tall, and let's bring the hands somewhere behind us. So we were working on this, I think it was the last class, or maybe the one before that. But we're going to find a spot for our hands to rest. So it can be on the buttocks like this. It could be on the hips like this. You can interlace the fingers like this. You could even hold on to the elbows if you want. So it's really, they're all good. One isn't better than the other. I want to find something that's comfortable. And you'll notice that when my hands are starting to get behind me, I get a nice opening here. And that counteracts the, when we sit, we tend to have the shoulders hunching forward like this. But when I have my hands somewhere behind me, somewhere past at the hips or behind, it opens the heart and the chest. So I get this nice opening, kind of like a superhero. It's opening their costume, and they always, they look really super. So if it was Halloween, it'd be kind of funny if I had like a little Superman thing underneath, but I didn't think of that. And just hanging out like this. So we did our softening of the knees with, and then straightening. Let's try the same thing, softening and straightening the knees, but this time with the arms somewhere so that the chest stays open. And if you do have issues with balance and you're standing, I'm going to grab another chair. It's right here. Then don't bend the, you might not want to bend the knees because it may be a little harder to balance. So if your hands are behind you somewhere and you're bending your knees, you won't have you won't have access to the chair as easily. So you may want to be extra careful and take a few more breaths. And you can do the same thing seated too, right? If you slide forward in the chair, the hands could even be behind you on the back of the chair. So it could be like this. And if I'm seated, I like to actually roll my hands so that my thumbs are pointing out towards the side, and I put my palms down. Actually, not my palms, my fingertips are on the seat of the chair. I can't really put my palms down comfortably on the seat of the chair. But you'll notice that as I do this, my shoulders roll out, and that helps to roll the shoulders back and open the heart, open the chest. And let's stand up nice and tall. You can release the arms now. You can release the arms. And we're going to do triangle pose. So with triangle pose, we're going to step the feet apart. And it's the same thing if you're seated. You'll step the feet apart, and the arms will come out, and then we'll inhale, and then we'll fold to the side. It's nice to have the hand slide down the leg a little like this, and then come back up, and then the other side. So we drop the arm down, drop the hand onto the leg, and then we come back up. With the hand on the leg, it's kind of like a brake. We can use the hand, the friction of the hand on the leg, so that we're not hanging in space when we go to the side. There's some support underneath there. And it's the same thing seated. Let's all come back up. And now I'll show it seated. So if you're standing, you can step the feet apart again and do what we just did. If you're seated, you'll do it with the feet apart, and this general shape is the same. We inhale, and then we let the arm come down to the leg and let the hand slide down the leg, and then we come back up and then do the other side. You could, even if you're seated, you could also do it with the legs straight if you wanted, but it's a little more, it requires more balance in the chair, and it requires you to sit near the end of the chair. So you have to be extra careful if you're going to have the legs straight when you're seated in the chair, just to make sure the balance is good. And one more time on each side. And then bring the hands back together. And a couple of mountain poses. So if you're seated, so if you're standing, you'll bend the knees slightly and then straighten the legs and stand up and lift the heart. If you're seated, think about isometrically contracting the quadriceps, pressing the feet down, and lifting the heart up. You could, even if you're seated, you could bring the hands to the side of the chair too, or roll the thumbs out to open the heart. You could do this standing. This isn't exactly mountain pose, but if you're standing in mountain pose and you're bending, You could also roll the arms out like you're gonna, like you're a high diver and you're gonna dive. You open, or maybe you are diving, thinking about lifting the heart as you, and then bending the net leg slightly, arms come back, and then inhaling, heart opens, legs straighten. And try that a few times. And add the breath to it too. So the breath is coming when we inhale and lift up and open the chest. And the exhale is the opposite. And let's do our, we're going to do this stepping exercise that we've been doing, where we step back and lift the heart up. So if you're doing it standing, you can alternate legs. If you're doing it seated, I'd probably recommend that you start with one side. And so sliding to the edge of the chair, sliding towards one half so you can begin to get the leg back behind you like this. And it won't be perfect. And then inhaling up and then exhaling, coming down. So the position or the shape of this pose is this curve that we get on the front of the body. So it's the opposite of when we fold forward. So if I'm seated, I just have my leg back and I'm using my lifting here, the lifting of the front of the body to get that nice shape, that curved shape. And then I can switch to the other side and do the other side. And remember, no matter whether you're seated or standing, you can stop or pause at any time to take a rest. And so if you're standing, you're stepping back, and we still have that same curve in the front of the body, and we can lift the arm up to do that if we want. You don't have to do the arm, but the arm's a nice way to get a little bit more curve. You could even keep the arm bent like this if your shoulder doesn't like the arm straight. And if you want a little more of a challenge, when you get in the position, pause there for a moment and then release. I'm not doing anything when I pause. I'm just pausing for a moment and then I'm releasing. So we were where our attention goes earlier, moving our attention back and forth. So this requires us to pause and then release. So we need to find the pause. We need to mentally find that we're pausing, and then we release and we come back. Different from this. And let's go ahead and let's come back to mountain pose. We'll do our balance pose. We're going to do a tree pose before we sit back down. So remember, if you need a chair, please have your chair handy for tree pose. And you can also do your tree pose seated. So we'll start with it standing up nice and tall, and then stepping the leg open, the thigh open like this. Do that a few times. Do one and then come back. So open and back and open and back. And it's handy to have a chair. Sometimes, we all sometimes lose our balance. I mean, that's life. We are human beings and we lose our balance. We're doing the other side now. And so you could go, if you feel like going a little faster, you could go a little faster, or if you feel like working slowly, you go slowly. And it's sort of gives it a different flavor. And now let's go and do tree pose, where we'll come out, and then we'll bring the sole of the foot on the inside of the calf. And see if you can find a drishti point, and go ahead and lift the arms up if that's comfortable, or one arm if you need the chair. Or even, you can have both hands on the chair. If you want more of a challenge, if you're using both hands on the chair, try not to grip the chair, but to rest the fingers on the chair. And we're going to do the other side. So we'll turn the leg out and come into tree pose. If you're seated, remember, seated tree pose, same idea, sit up nice and tall, and then go ahead and bring the foot out. So there's more weight, or most of the weight is on this side, the leg that's pointed straight ahead. You could even, if you wanted, work with the leg like this, with the leg straight. And then we'll come back down and bring the legs back together. And let's sit down. So make sure you're warm enough now. Make sure you're covered up enough, and we'll inhale and circle the arms around. I'm going to start to warm down a little bit. Find your own pace here too. And then as you start to feel the movement, as you start to tune into the pace, go ahead and allow the breath to slow down a little. Relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the face, perhaps even closing the eyes here. So as the breath slows down and the body slows down, the mind slows down and gets ready to relax. We're going to bring the palms together and go back the other way. And then please find your Shavasana. And feel free, if you wanted to, you could do Shavasana on the floor. Just make sure it's a comfortable. You want to be quite comfortable if it's going to be on the floor, which means a firm but a comfortable, soft but not squishy on the floor. So we don't want to have hot spots on our body that we feel uncomfortable on. And the same thing goes when we're seated too. If you need a little padding underneath you, you can take a blanket. Just spread the blanket out. So we want it to be firm but comfortable. And we're going to tune into the breath. Find a comfortable spot for the hands and the arms to relax and tune into the breath. Feeling the belly going in and out with the breath. And softening the eyes. Perhaps taking the glasses off here helps the face to relax. So we'll continue for about another minute or so together. And then we'll formally end our class. But please continue with your Shavasana as long as you'd like. At least a couple more minutes, even up to 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes people really enjoy a long Shavasana. Just breathing in and out, feeling the breath. Each time we exhale, we soften, we release, we relax a little bit more. You can even repeat to yourself as you exhale, relax, relax, release, release, let go, let go. Each time we exhale, there's a little more softening. Namaste. Thank you for practicing today. Hope everyone has a good weekend. So please continue with your Shavasana if you're so inclined. I'll see everyone next week. Namaste.